Good evening and welcome to your brand new sneaker channel, Full Frame Kicks, the show where anything goes. We will be discussing and diving into the current world of sneakers, from the latest drops to the best bots. We are virtual today, given the current climate. Once we are back to some normal, we will of course be back in the amazing Launchpod studios, who will look after us as always. My name is Jamie, aka JP Kicks, and I will be your host. I've been into sneakers for over 25 years and a member of the Real Soul family, and I thrive on community meetups and events. I'm joined by my three other co-hosts who will be with me weekly. I will hand over to them shortly so they can introduce themselves. First up is Andy Wilson, aka the Sneaker Dog, Sneakonomist. Andy, over to you.
Hi, how you doing? It's exciting times. Thank you very much for everyone that's tuning in. As JP said, my name's Andy Wilson. I have been passionate about sneakers for a long time. I work in finance, I work in banking, so I try and sort of tie up my expertise from that side of the business and bring the sort of the data and the news to the sneaker community, and hopefully you guys find it interesting.
Fantastic. Thanks, Andy. Next up is Leon Avery, aka not Leon Avery, and also he will tell us later on about United Footwear Project. Leon,
United.
Over to you.
Jamie's got a whole script and everything. So I am Leon Avery, or not Leon Avery, because the Instagram handle was taken. I am a budding footwear designer. No, I quit my job in October to pursue the dream of starting my own footwear brand and basically compiling all of the millions of hurdles along the way into a transparent platform in which I will be sharing, with the goal of releasing some fucking sick shit by October 2021.
Fantastic, love it. And last but not least is Josh, aka the Lucky Botter. Hello, Josh.
Hey, Dan, you're right. Yeah, so my name's Josh. I am known as a Lucky Botter. I try to do YouTube, where basically the idea is to show the transparency around botting, reselling of trainers. I know some people are not going to like that straight away, but basically the reason how or why I got into botting was because I am a sneaker enthusiast, and most of the stuff that I get, I keep, unfortunately for me. But the idea was to actually try and bring transparency around it and to teach people like myself who are trying to get their own pairs how to bot. I also run an online group called the Old Boys Botting Club, where if anyone is 30 or over and is looking to learn about botting and to learn about that whole scene in reselling, I basically run that group with a bunch of other people in order to teach that.
Fantastic. So the situation is we are coming together each week and we are going to put together a round table for our audience, and we're going to try and pick a topic each week and get guests in. So anyone who's watching or going to be watching this, obviously feel free to jump into any of our DMs if you want to get involved, if you want to be a guest, you are always more than welcome. So this week's round table talk, and to kick things off, we are going to be talking about the quality control in the industry and how it affects us all. And it definitely affects all four of us, you know, from a finance perspective, to a designer's view, to consumers' thoughts, you know, to the botter's perspective on quality control. So, guys, who wants to talk first? We've been having a chat in, a WhatsApp group about some of this quality control. So, who wants to kick things off?
I mean, I'm happy to sort of start. You say from a financial perspective. And I think what's interesting here for us all is that within the community, we're all hell bent on, you know, even if the box turns up damaged, majority of us are going to be a little bit despondent and a bit frustrated. So from the perspective of a financial side of things, I'm going to take the hype out of it. And anyone that's listened to or watched a lot of my videos where I've talked about how hype releases, etc., are good for the brand itself, but don't actually bring a huge amount of money in. I think it begs the question that for a firm the size of Nike, Adidas, etc., who are churning out hundreds of millions of pairs of trainers every year, how bothered are they going to be about some shortfalling, if you like, with regards to quality? if complacency steps in, this is my worry for the likes of Nike, that the amount of trash that was sent out in 2020 by Nike in particular, I think they do need to sort it out. But I think bringing it to their attention is a completely different matter. I've been doing some work on QC, and a lot of people of the community have been very kind enough to send me the bad QC, and I've been inundated, to be honest, with bad quality that's been sent out in 2020. That doesn't mean to say that if anyone is watching this and has anything that they've picked up, they've been sent that was really, really bad. For instance, the Elephant Dunks that came out, they were probably the worst one that we've seen as a collective. We've been, so I've been collecting all of that data, putting it together. I've tried to speak to the company to try and get some kind of feedback from them or whatever. But if that was my company and my massive sneaker trainer fans were complaining about bad quality, I would want to be addressing it.
I couldn't agree more.
I'm going to come in. I'm going to come in with a bit of a sad hot take. I don't think a brand like Nike actually has to care anymore. It's I'm sure Josh can attest to this on the resale side of things, but it doesn't seem to affect resale all too much. Prices and aftermarket is always sky high. With retailers, they're still coming back and ordering more and more stock. The responsibility a lot of the time would fall on the retailer to actually, say, hey, we've ordered X amount of product. Half of it is pretty much unsellable, or it's going to end up going on the sale rack. So that would give Nike that pressure, right? But it doesn't seem like that will ever happen when everything is still flying off the shelves. So for these top ticket items, where the hype is through the roof, they can do whatever they like. They can throw out an Elephant Dunk where the print is like done by a 3-year-old. It doesn't really matter. It's still selling, and the only people getting hurt are the consumer.
I was about to say exactly the same thing. That's the problem, and it's just getting worse and worse. But I'm kind of see a trend within certain silhouettes from Nike. I feel like the Dunk SB range, apart from, of course, the Elephant, generally is a very good quality control shoe. But then I take like an Air Max 90, and I always feel like there's kind of like paint marks and glue marks all over it. No?
I mean, simply put, with that, the Dunk is a very, very, very easy shoe to make. The fewer panels, the fewer there's opportunities for people to mess up, the fewer mistakes that are getting made. The Dunk is made just on a cup sole, so it's a one sole unit. Well, it's kind of split between two with the outsole, but it's not like the Air Max 90, for instance, which is a lot more technical to produce that sole, to have an air bubble within it, and then they paint that over, because they're not really separate units within it. If you look at like the window, so it is kind of a lot more difficult for them to keep that consistent. And basically, anywhere where you've got more panels, is you're going to have more opportunities for failure. Dunks really shouldn't have an issue, to be honest.
My question is, like, when does it become going away from QC to what collectors want, and that's a factory floor? So, for instance, I got a load of the Puerto Rico Air Force Ones, and what happened was the flag was the other way around. Yeah. And there was only one retailer that shipped it. The rest sent them back for being respective of the country. But it was a quality control issue as well.
And now they're reselling it a fortune. No,
crazy.
Yeah.
I'm still holding a few of them. And even I had elephants. I mean, I've got a personal pair of elephants, and luckily they're not, I don't think they're affected that bad, as in like the pattern at the top there. They're actually pretty good compared to what I've seen. But then I had a pair without the E. It had Nike, but no E.
What, Nick?
Yeah, literally on one of the shoes. And a collector paid me a crazy amount because they wanted that, because they never thought Nike would ever let the factory leave it like that. So when does it, in your eyes, become quality control to then a flaw in the factory with like a wrong swoosh or something? Do you know what I mean?
I think I can field that, and the answer is, simply put, it becomes a QC issue when it's happening across the board. It becomes a collector thing when it's like 1 in a million. I feel like it's very, very rare to have a nick shoe, but it's not very rare to have paint and glue marks and things like that. I don't know. I feel like that's more to do with like the execution rather than design elements.
I guess the fact with the Puerto Rican one is the flag was good, but it was flipped. I guess you could say it's the same as things like the Heineken dunks or the Freddy Krueger dunks, etc., where they might have gone out. There's been a cease and desist, and a few stores have sent them out. I had an issue. I got the Gizmo Gremlin Superstars. Stan Smiths just before Christmas. They were due to be coming out on the Adidas website. They released early on there. I came across them by accident. I managed to put them in the basket, check out, and then a day and a half later got a cancellation. They sent me a 25% off coupon. So I went back onto the website straight away to find out when they were going to be dropping, and it let me put a half size down into my basket, which I could still fit to, and apply the coupon and check out. They then sent me the shoes, and then come release date, they disappeared off the website, and I think there was like a cease and desist. So I guess you get instances like that where they become a collector's item because of the scarcity, but there was not actually anything wrong with them per se. Yeah, and going back to what Leon said, I don't want to go into too much detail on the QC stuff that I'm going to be doing separately when I finish it all. But as manufacturing moves from country to country, though it started in Taiwan, then they clamped down, it moved to China, then you started having tariffs, etc., and they started moving to places like Vietnam, Indonesia. You don't have the skilled workers in the new countries that have been doing it for years and years. So you often find shoes that are made in Indonesia are normally pairs that are easier to put together. And for instance, on an ASICS shoe, I think there's something like 17 panels on an ASICS shoe, whereas if you're going to look at something like a Tangen that you get in Sports Direct, it's a single knitted upper and a painted on swoosh. So there's very little that can kind of go wrong with that, because it got me thinking about, is it just us being picky as sneaker collectors, or would a normal person buying a pair of trainers open the box and go, oh well, there's a little mark on that, I don't care because I'm going to run around the block in them now, or I'm going to run across the park?
Would they even look for the mark?
This is it.
I'm going to be a bit controversial and say, I like my shoes looking like they're worn. Like, I like wearing shoes. So it's the reason why I like the Sean Weatherspoon ranges of anything with corduroy, because the way it wears and the way it ages, I just love. And I love, like, for instance, the shattered backboards, because they've already got the sort of
of course,
bellowing of the sole. Yeah, and that patina around it. And actually, when I get shoes with glue marks, whatever, I personally, honestly, I don't care personally. I don't mind quality control technically, because I also understand the problem is, like, you buy a pair of the shoes that were £80. Nike probably never, well, they knew it was going to happen, but when people are starting to exchange hands of £1,000 and a £500 shoe, I think sometimes we can get into the hype of the resale value and the scarcity. But Nike never sold it for 500 quid or whatever they're selling it at the retail price, which is still expensive, don't get me wrong, but I'm kind of like, I'm going to put them on my feet. It's only, I find as a reseller, when I resell to resellers, they care about the box, they care about the shoe. But when I sell to the actual consumer, direct to them for resale, they don't care about the box, or they don't care really that much about the shoe. They'll put them on straight away and they'll throw away the box in front of me. It's quite weird. It feels like we're sometimes in a bubble as well, especially resellers, I'm saying. So
if you're selling to other resellers, a lot of the time it's with that value in mind, though, right? It's more about preserving that value. If they're so worried about the box, it's because it's a big part of that overall price tag.
Yeah, and I think as well, a lot of resellers have a safety net, and that safety net is something that's come into the industry not too long ago, but it's done good and bad, and that's StockX. And StockX won't accept sneakers unless they've got.
Well, I was literally about to say all these platforms now.
But Goat has actually changed it, where you can put down that there's a damaged box and people can bid for it. And weirdly, you go on there And sometimes there's no difference in the price with a bid of a damaged box and a non-damaged box, because that's the consumer. So if StockX were to bring out maybe a grading system like they do with sports cards, maybe that would change a bit in regards to pricing. But yeah, I was just, from my point of view, I honestly don't mind about quality control, like little glue marks are in there. I personally, for my own wearing shoes, I don't actually mind. I know it's probably a bit controversial, but I don't.
I think it's easy to undersell it sometimes as well, because I think a lot of the things that that Andy's been looking into and being reporting on is not necessarily just like glue stains. And one that kind of really stuck out to me was the Jerry Lorenzo, the fog ones. You put your foot in, you'd zip it up, the zip would break, and your foot is stuck in the shoe, and that's a £300 retail shoe. And then ever since that point on, I've paid a lot more attention to it. And there's so many, functional aspects that have gone wrong with these shoes outside of like just the cosmetics, like glue stains or a loose thread or things like that. Because I feel like people can make a bigger fuss of that than needs be. But you were showing me before, Andy, weren't you, with the random scuff that is on the leather of that pair?
Yeah, so there was, I don't know if the camera will pick it up, don't we?
It definitely won't, but it in an actual picture, it's not too bad. Like,
if it's Air Max, I'm finding a lot of the Air Max ones, like the green ones, are they the orange and green ones? I got a few of them, and all of them had like a wear patch, or like someone had brushed with it and stuff like that. And the greens and those, people said they were anniversary, but people then said they weren't anniversary, those ones that came out.
I don't think this is going to show up on this camera.
It won't show up on the camera.
There's a brush here where my finger is, where it's just a little bit lighter, where they painted it, where they looks like. We don't know if it's glue or whether they painted over.
You can kind of see it.
But we'll have to get James to throw it in post.
Yeah, he put a couple of pictures up.
But I must say, these Air Max 1 LV8, a full leather shoe, and the quality generally is very, very good on them. I must admit, they've still got some, the E sort of drops away a little bit, but I guess after what Josh was saying, I'm quite pleased I've got an E on it.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy.
Maybe I'll pay for that.
I feel though what happens is every now and again you'll get a certain shoe where it will just be notorious bad quality. Like look at the limes. Remember those limes that were cracking? Yeah. And that wasn't just one or two pairs, it was across the board. Yeah. So I kind of feel every say 3-4 months we get a shoe where it would just be, it'll blow up.
Oh, it's got to be way more frequent than that. Last year especially, it's got to be way more frequent than that. It's like every month.
Yeah, every month.
There's something
must be a shoe a month.
Is just god awful that comes out.
What was the pink one? Was that pink lemonade? Was that what it was? But the pink in those in like the limeade, and there was 3.
Yeah, the Powerwall pack.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, don't call them the Powerwalls. You'll get people upset.
I know.
But I've seen a case where because it's got air written all across the whole upper, pretty much, hasn't it? Apart from I think on the toe box.
Yeah, it's just a print.
But I've seen a pair of the pink ones where air was upside down across the whole thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the panel had been printed on upside down, or they put the wrong side.
Dollar signs in Josh's eyes. Then I just saw that.
Yeah, I want them straight away. I'll put them with the Puerto Ricos.
Exactly.
But yeah, there's been a shocking amount. It has been a shocking amount. But I guess we're concentrating on the bad. And sorry, JP, if you were going to sort of tilt it and change it slightly.
No, you crack on.
I think we should not forget what a resurgence the likes of New Balance have had in 2020. Any of the Diadora sort of special, I know you can pick up Diadora for sort of 40-50 quid from a JD or whatever, but some of the, if I think of like the purple tapes from before, etc., and I know that there was another one that dropped just before Christmas, the quality on those, like the Lidos, the Lidos that came out last year, the quality on some of the materials they use, it's just completely game changing.
Well, Footwear News, actually, they voted New Balance as their brand of the year for last year. And to be honest, I definitely agree with that. I don't think I could point to a specific shoe and say, hey, that was the best shoe of the year, but just the pure consistency that they had, the terrible year that Nike was having as a consumer and somebody who cares about things like QC. it's always good to lean on those other brands. And I think there were quite a few brands that then sort of had that as a result, where they were comfort in that you could buy them and you would know they'd turn up and they wouldn't be riddled with these issues.
Yeah.
So I think New Balance had a really strong year. I think it would be interesting as they scale a bit more, as some of these secondary markets now start being really attracted to New Balance with these higher price tags that are coming in. It would be interesting to see if they start making QC errors as well. New Balance actually own their own factory in the UK, I believe. They're one of the only footwear brands that do that. Cool. And so they do have like full autonomy over how those come out, at least the made in UK ones.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting.
And they're a bit more expensive, right? The made in UK ones?
Yeah, the 992s, aren't they,
Yeah.
Silhouette, which they also did the made in USA. So they've got like the two sides to it, where they've also got like the made in USA, if you try to get here, are a lot more expensive. And then the last sort of, they did a collaboration with Casablanca, and those in hand are really nice. Like just things like the eyelets at the end of the laces and things like that. It's really like just little touches, even the box itself. Like,
were they the green and the orange pair? The Casablanca?
That's the one, yeah.
With the big end.
That's it. I forgot what that silhouette's called, because that and the 992 for resale, they were the biggest ones this year. The 992s are crazy now, and Casablancas have gone down a bit, but those two silhouettes were the kind of ones.
I really like that silhouette. It's a lovely silhouette. It's grown on me a hell of a lot.
Yeah. I've got loads here if you want to buy a pair.
Mates rates, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
Exactly, good. We'll chat later. But Josh, honestly, QC, does it affect you much, within, or not?
It does, but I think the notorious, as you guys said, like there's always a shoe that that there are QC problems. So the people buying it know that this shoe has got some issues. So like the Elephants, or even some of the mids that have come out, Jordan mids, are freaking horrendous. And then if you buy them from certain retailers, they ship them in a bag, and they're never going to be good as soon as they get shipped in a bag. The box comes. Even a friend of mine had a postage label stuck on the actual box. So like the shoebox, and tape around the shoebox, a pair of Sakai's. So we kind of know like what ones have got the bad things, and we know there's going to be like the Michigan Dunks, disgusting, like glue everywhere, but everyone knew that. So the market reflected it. So the price across the board had already kind of taken into account. Like if you look at, people don't like resale value, but whatever, like if you looked at Michigan, say about 100 retail, you're only really getting about 140, 130. So, and that was because of the horrendous QC across the whole of the Michigan range, or across the whole of the high dunk range. The new dunks that just came out though, the gray and the platinum whites, and there was one other one, that it seems like they're a lot different. And even the leather feels a lot tougher, whereas the Michigans were very soft. I don't know much about it, but it feels a lot different, if that makes sense.
It is kind of weird, actually, as I'm sitting here thinking about this as you're talking, how QC does affect the aftermarket, because I've just made a little connection myself, because I'm very, vocal about QC issues and things like that. But then I also dropped like £400 on a pair of shoes that is like over 10 years old, that I know is going to crumble within a few wears. That's like the ultimate QC like problem, but it's okay because I got it on the aftermarket, knowing that. So I don't really know.
But did you buy
why I draw that line? Did you I bought them to wear, but I bought, you pay. Well, that is the price. Let me see. Right, hold on. Okay, here we go. Right, this pair. Okay.
There we go.
This is one of my favorite shoes, like of all time. It's the MX1 Crepe Hemp. I think it's 2004. And it's basically one of very, very few shoes that has used this actual hemp, and like the suede is top notch. You can see, you won't see here, but it's got sewing machine lines along the suede, which is indicative that it's all been hand done. It's all like really high quality suede, and that is still there after 17 years. So, it's really high quality. And then on the other hand, I paid 400 quid for a shoe that's turned into a flip-flop. So
had they been worn already, or were they dead stock when you bought them?
They were very near dead stock, I think. So they'd only been worn a couple of times. And as somebody who buys these older pairs, the more worn they are, the longer they will last. If you buy a dead stock pair of 10-year-old shoes, it won't be around for long, typically. So I kind of knew that would happen.
They're a midsole swap though. Could you?
Yes, yeah. But again, that's more expense. Plug to Paul, what's his name? It's DJ Neo Geo on Instagram. He does my sole swaps. It's fantastic.
Very good.
But Leon, going back, you were talking about the quality on that pair. Does that not then go back to something like, with time? So shoes that were made 17, 20, 25 years ago, they may have generally just been a lot better quality than shoes that are made, say, in the last 5 years, no?
Yes and no. They were making fewer pairs. Also, quite an interesting point to bring up there. These older pairs of Air Max, for instance, were using a different either EVA or TPU blend that basically meant that they had a shorter sole shelf life. The Air Maxes that they're making today are theoretically going to last longer than that. I think they were saying instead of 10 years average, it will be 15 years. The average person, that means nothing to them because they'll beat and throw them out over the course of a year. But for people like us, that should be good news. It is an interesting point.
So that then turns things around, saying that the newer shoes will potentially, if you look after them, they will last longer and you won't have cracking soles in 10, 15 years. But the quality of the shoe.
The soles, yes.
Yeah.
But I think Nike, I know we always bring it back to Nike, but there are other construction issues that come into play outside of just the sole. As we've seen on a few different pairs.
But then let's talk about Yeezy, for example. I've got to say, I think the quality control on them is incredible.
Is that just the simplicity of it, though? With
really?
Fabric.
I just feel like they're really. I've never had problems. I
stick mine in the washing machine every week.
Yeah.
I just feel they're such solid. Yes, they are a very simple silhouette. I agree, but I don't know. I just feel the quality.
Even the Wave Runners that are not simple compared to the 350s. I had a good few pairs of them. I haven't seen personally any issue quality control on them.
I love my Wave Runners.
Say again.
I love the Wave Runners.
Yeah, but they were retail 250?
Yeah.
There's your kind of way up. I expect that on them.
Yeah.
Whereas I could have picked up on the day Elephant Dunks at 250 resale. So but then
hang on, but look at what you've just said. The 250 at the RRP for the Wave Runners, but then RRP on a pair of Dunks is 90 quid.
Yeah, so exactly. So I'd expect the quality to be good on theirs compared to the Dunk, personally. But
if you're looking at it that sort of way,
it is weird. The Yeezy one, it is mainly branding. I think they are. Well, obviously they're going to be made a bit better than a Dunk, but a lot of that price premium when they first came out was because Boost was relatively new. They're made by a company called BASF or something. And basically, Adidas have struck deals with them over the years to be able to amass huge amounts of it. Same thing
sorry to interrupt. Look at the Sun Wave Runners that literally just came out yesterday. They're 40 quid cheaper than the originals, right?
Yeah, they're 210 now. Yeah, they're 210.
Oh,
shit. They come out on Saturday.
Why is that?
It's a new retail.
Right.
But I'm guessing might be to do with what Leon just said about that. They've done this deal with the Boost company, so therefore they can bring the price of the shoe down.
I didn't know they ever brought that down.
If you look at is it the 500s? The 500s don't have any boost.
No.
And they're still
160.
Yeah, so they're still a premium. Yeah. And they've got no boost whatsoever. It's just like rubber.
Their suede rubber, they're made a lot better, I have to say. I've only owned the blushes, but when I had them, I was so chuffed. It was just a lot nicer. I think 350s, really the only problem they commonly have is just glue stains, and that's because there isn't really anywhere for them to stitch through the sole. So it's like...
The paint starts fading on the sole quite a lot as well, doesn't it? It starts to yellow.
Yeah.
The sole itself will discolor a lot. If you look at, like Zebra's blue tints, creams, that oxidizes and it turns that really horrible yellow color. So it's it's QC in different areas. That's my thing as well, is we don't know what Boost is going to do in 10 years. We don't know if it just shrivels up and dies. Like, it was only ever made for, well, BASF is the people who supply NASA. So that's what Boost was actually mainly for. It was for spaceships, and they're not made to, be used over and over and over again. So it's like, we don't really know the long-term way that these will hold up, whether they just evaporate or dissolve. We don't know yet. It'll be really interesting.
Just going back to the dunks very quickly, the elephant dunks. Josh, is there like two sort of resale markets for them? A good pair and a bad pair?
Interesting.
I think it depends on the person that you're selling to. If you think about now, like most of the people that buy these shoes for resale, yeah, you do have your collectors, but most of them it's because they know the dunks are the thing at the moment, and they don't actually like dunks, if that makes sense. Right. So, I mean, I think there is, for instance, I've got one guy who I know, before I'm going to sell anything to him, I need to take 20 pictures of a shoe. But then I also know that if that shoe is fine, he will pay a lot more because he's looking for that one particular one, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I think there is two markets, but it's very hard to find the actual collector's market, because the problem is most resellers are assholes and they're liars. Like, honestly, the amount of times that people for a quick buck won't mention or won't take a picture of just a crease in the box, right? Like, because they want a quick sale rather than a long-term relationship. Where for me, if someone buys a product, I'm straight up, look, I'm going to send you a picture of the box and send you a picture of the product. This is what I think could be wrong with it. Up to you whether you like it or not. And I think that's what's been lost in reselling recently, because some people are there for the money rather than other reasons or whatever. But yeah, there is technically, that was the longest way of saying, yeah, technically there are two markets, but the second market, or the collector's market, is quite hidden in a way and quite protected, because it's all about relationships, really.
I was watching a YouTube, some YouTube footage about the replica shoe market. And what I thought was quite interesting is that if someone was ordering this particular replica producer, said that if someone's buying a shoe, they would be taking lots of pictures for them to make sure they're happy with it. And it kind of struck me that the amount of care and attention almost that's going into this person producing a replica to make sure that their customer is happy, compared to something that's just being sent out willy-nilly with bad QC or damaged boxes and stuff like that. It really made me think that actually, I know it's ripping off a design, and the actual people that design the shoe aren't getting the recognition financially for it. But I just thought it was quite interesting that actually someone that might be deemed as the dirtier end of the industry is actually putting much more care and attention into producing something than the
big boys.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was watching some footage of I don't think it ever got aired properly because of what happened, but it was, say, like a podcast, and they had one of the designers of a shoe, and they put out shoes that he designed and made against replicas, and they said, pick the one that's yours. And he picked one up and went, yeah, this has got to be ours. This is like, that one is trash. It's heavy. And he picked up the replica compared to the original. So even he straight away picked up the replica and went, this is much better, thinking it was his shoe, when actually the other rubbish shoe was his shoe, which should to him say, shit, I need to rethink what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to get hold of, get in contact with some people in the replica market for the QC work I'm doing at the moment. But Nike announced that they've just gone and sued a load of them. There's been like 600 companies, and there's been individuals, and there's been websites, etc. So I'd imagine that there's quite a few of them that are keeping quite a low profile at the moment.
Yeah.
I bet they are. But these guys, they're just getting better and better, aren't they? It's scary.
Yeah.
I do want to touch on this because it loops back to what we were saying before about Yeezys, and I remembered I got it completely wrong. Yeezys the 350s have had a number of issues over the years. So, for instance, around the Zebra restocks and around the blue tint release sort of era, and this ties in with the fake manufacturers in that Adidas were producing so many pairs so quickly and so kind of not the way that they have been doing, that the replica manufacturers had to go back and make imperfections in their shoes to make it look like the real thing. Because on the blue tints, the like this God, what's that called again? I've forgotten.
Pull tab.
Pull tab. It was off, like the placement was off so often. It was like skew width. It was either too far down or too far up.
And how many stitches were on the back as well, right?
They were messing everything up. So the fakes looked too good.
Yeah.
So they were being turned down because they didn't look realistic. They looked like they were, you know, perfect. And that just wasn't what was happening. And the same thing with, I think on like the V2 knits, on certain sizes, you're meant to be able to see, I don't have a V2, you're meant to be able to see a certain number of like waves coming through the knit. And that was a good check of how legit they were at the time. And again, Adidas kind of, whether they're playing 4D chess and they're making these mistakes on purpose, I don't know, but that was quite a huge thing actually. Even if it was kind of like little, it's just, it's a pull tab. Like sock knit, but that's kind of all the shoe was. So
I've seen replica elephant dunks that look brilliant. I've only seen pictures of them online, but they look way better than the real thing, and that's on replica ones.
Crazy.
Interesting.
Leon, question for you. Your your Nike Lab shoes that you got done. Now, was that? How did that work again? I remember that it was in 1948, wasn't it?
Boost. Yes, 1948. It was just after the Second World War. So these are all shut now, basically. But at the time, you would email in. You would say, "Hey, I'd like to book an appointment at the studio," and then they'd get in touch. They'd put in a time for you. I went, I think, April 2018, and I spent like 4 hours in there. They have had a whole studio, 2 people that would help you out 2-hand. You'd go through all the individual like swatches. They'd have drawers of it. They'd have display cases with airbags and laces, and they kind of design it on Photoshop in front of you, depending on what you pick out. You also have like a model version of a shoe, which has like all the different panel names, and even that was really high quality. They had a wall of all bespokes, and it was perfect. It was like a trainer enthusiast's dream. It was 750 quid.
I remember.
Yeah, it's to produce a one of one shoe. You could put your name on it. You could do anything you like. So mine says Avery on the back.
The reason why obviously I wanted to discuss that, the reason why I wanted to mention that is because obviously of the quality. So would you say that's probably the best quality Air Max you've ever seen?
I would say so. I don't think that's ever really to be up for debate. You can pick out all of the individual, leathers and things like that yourself, but in terms of construction quality, there is not a single warped stitch. Everything is exactly where it should be. You can tell it was done like super slowly. It was done with like a shitload of care. There is nothing wrong with the shoe. I think the only thing is around 2018, they were still using a slightly older shape, which wasn't as, sharp as some people like. It was better than like that 2015, or the 2012 era. But yeah, super, super high quality. And it was also kind of nice because like certain things where they would advise you on it. Like if you were to go, I want suede on the lining here, well, they would tell you, that's not a great idea. Like it will rub off on your socks. If you wear black socks, it's going to stain the inside. And so they would advise you on that as well. So that's always also good quality control at a very human level, because they kind of tell you what's going to happen if you pick certain elements.
Leathers and materials, yeah, of course. Amazing. Andy, did you want to say something?
No. I'm amazed it was £750.
It was it was a lot of money. I think in terms of like actual construction quality and everything, I would put it akin to shoes that are in that £400-500 retail pricing. I think you pay the premium because of the gimmick and because of it's the studio time and man hours,
right? It's the whole experience of it.
I had 2 people helping me that are employed there as their job, for 4 hours. So it's like you do have to pay for that, and then it's done, over like it's produced in the factory overseas. And I think I may want to check this, but I think it's produced in a separate factory. It's in their it's in their Thailand area. So it's around, a lot of the best Air Max were made in those Thailand factories. Best quality ones from like the golden era, which is like 2003 to 2008.
But that's what you were paying for at the end of the day. That's it. It's the whole round experience. Because I actually remember, I was in there when they were doing it all, but because of the price point, obviously I unfortunately couldn't go ahead. Kind of regret it now.
It requires
because it's all stopped now. Yeah.
It's a lot of forward planning. I was meant to go to the one in New York in September, and then
yes, unfortunately. But I even remember from my experience, I designed Nike IDs back in the day. And the original Nike ID studio up in Niketown, you were actually could pay a little bit extra, and you got invited in and you sat down with someone. Same sort of experience with you, but not obviously as much.
Yeah. So I think that's mainly done on it's done on the computer, right, with their own kind of software still. So it is still the Nike ID.
Yeah, and it was slightly different. You kind of could book these VIP appointments where you got some, drinks and snacks, and someone would sit down with you and show you some kind of swatches and color palettes and things like that. But they stopped all of that now. Really? Sorry?
That's a good old-fashioned customer service.
Yeah. Don't exist anymore like that.
No.
I think we're coming to an end. There was just one more thing I wanted to touch on, unless any of you guys had anything else to say. No? Fine. So last thing I wanted to ask, actually, Leon, sorry. With the whole QC thing and you in the process of, please God, designing your whole brand and sneakers and everything, what are your thoughts with it? And how are you thinking about things when you're starting to design and things? And have you thought about all of that?
I think if you're asking people to part with their money, you should be doing everything in your power to make sure that it's a top quality product. I think somewhere along the way, when these brands scale to the incredible heights that they are now, they kind of lose touch with that sentiment, and it becomes more about money saving. It becomes more about, if you're producing 100,000 pairs of a shoe, and it's done across several factories, it's very difficult for them to be able to have complete autonomy over all of it. They have to have trust in dozens of individual overseers. So it becomes a lot harder to do that, especially if they want to placate people who buy 500 pairs of shoes a year. They need to keep pumping out product, so it becomes harder. But I think these smaller brands, I'd argue Nike's become fast fashion, to be honest. But these smaller brands, these ones at the higher end price point, definitely should be attending to that very, very carefully. I think with what I want to do, these initial runs will be fairly small. I've got 100 planned for the first run. It would be very easy for me to individually check everything over. And then, I could potentially have a variance in place. But the idea is you start out with several rounds of sampling, and then they base it off of that. And if they, make mistakes along the actual production, you can turn certain pairs of it away or ask them to remake some pairs if they're completely awful. There's more to be found out about that.
Excellent. Great.
Can I just quickly add something to what Leon just said? Because it kind of
yeah, of course.
Especially as a botter for me, and I think everyone now, with how convenient everything is, QC issues I think can also come from the consumer, because I expect, for instance, red dunks, the low red dunks, for instance, in the UNLVs, the blue ones dropped yesterday, so the day before, whatever, a couple of days ago. Straight after, I'm on to the next release. So I'm now looking towards the black and white. if sneakers doesn't have anything up for a week, people are like moaning inside of collectors' Facebook groups going, what's going on? Why has sneakers not got anything dropping or whatever? So I think there is an expectation now, especially for me as a botter and a YouTuber, that every week I need a release. So, and by the time they get delivered, I'm over it. I'm on to the next one, then I'm on to the next one. So I do honestly think that as well, it does kind of come from the consumer, because I think we just expect that there is a exclusive release every week or every couple of weeks, which if we was to look back in, I don't know, maybe 2016, 17 even, there wasn't that many exclusive releases like every week. You'd be lucky to get one once a month. So I think that can be a bit of a culprit as well.
That's also, I guess, the lead time and all these is so huge. So I was just looking on this pair that turned up this week, and they started making them in July, was the beginning of the run for them. So that's July 2020.
Well, it's last year in particular as well. There are a number of factory shutdowns all throughout the whole thing that kind of put that spanner in the works. But yeah, no, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's fine. I mean, obviously you have maybe social distancing going on within the factories, so they're slower to produce stuff, which was one of the other reasons why when I was looking at this QC, I was trying to think, why has QC been so bad? Is it because of shutdowns? Is it because they've been struggling to get the right materials? Is it because they're rushing to bring stuff out because stuff's been delayed and Nike are putting pressure on the factories to be able to still produce at certain deadlines? So that's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of.
No, that's a fair point. And I think on that note, we should leave it there. It's been a great round table. We've enjoyed it, I think. I hope everyone else has enjoyed it. Don't forget, as always, to subscribe, please. Hit the notification bell. Give us a like and add a comment. It always helps with the YouTube algorithm and everything else. I've been Jamie.
I've been the Sneakonomist, Andy.
Oh, who's going to go next?
I'll go last. I'm always last.
Yeah.
I'm just some guy.
And I've been Josh, the lucky botter.
Stay lucky.
Oh, no.
It's be lucky, but that's all right.
It's
next
be lucky. I was close. No, honestly, guys, it's been great. We're going to be back next week. And we've got a guest next week, which I will not reveal to our audience, but I will tell you guys in our chat. And I think we're going to be talking about sneaker marketing. So it's going to be quite interesting. And yeah, we've been good. We've been going just under an hour. So I think we're going to leave it there. Keep well, have a good evening, and we'll see you later. And James is probably going to stop recording.